quarters kept coming back. Every morning when I opened Neon Dreams Arcade, I'd find the same 3 quarters sitting on top of the Pac-Man machine. The same 3 quarters I'd thrown in the dumpster the night before. They weren't special looking or anything, just regular quarters with dates from 1987, 1991, and 1995. But they always came back. My name is Jake, and I've been working at this arcade for 6 months now. The owner, Mr. Rodriguez, hired me after the last guy quit without giving any reason. He just stopped showing up one day, left his keys on the counter, and never came back for his final paycheck. I should have known something was wrong when Mr. Rodriguez offered me way more money than any arcade job should pay. The first week was normal enough. Kids came in after school, teenagers hung out on weekends, and parents brought their little ones for birthday parties. The games worked fine, the lights stayed on, and nobody complained about anything weird. Then the quarters started showing up. At first I thought maybe some kid was playing a prank. You know how kids are. They think it's funny to mess with the new guy. So I started throwing the quarters away every night, making sure to bury them deep in the trash. But they always came back to the same spot on the Pac-Man machine. After 2 weeks of this, I decided to test something. Instead of throwing them away, I put them in my pocket and took them home. I locked them in a box in my bedroom drawer. The next morning, they were back on the Pac-Man machine. That's when I knew this place was different. The other weird stuff started small. Games would turn on by themselves during my lunch break. The music from different machines would sync up in ways that shouldn't be possible. The claw machine would grab prizes and drop them by the front door, like it was trying to give them away. But the strangest thing was the green game in the back corner. It didn't have a name, no title screen, no company logo, nothing. Just a black screen with green text that said, "Insert coin to begin." The cabinet was tall and narrow, painted in that same bright green color. 2 big round eyes stared out from the top, and below them was a mouth full of sharp white teeth. Nobody ever played it. Kids would walk up to it, put their hands on the controls, then back away like they'd touched something hot. Adults wouldn't even look at it. They'd walk around it like it wasn't there, even when the path was crowded and going around made no sense. I tried to play it once during a slow Tuesday afternoon. I put a quarter in the slot and waited. The screen flickered for a second, showing what looked like a maze made of green lines. Then it went black again. The quarter came out of the return slot immediately. Even the machine didn't want me to play it. 3 months into the job, things got weirder. I started hearing voices coming from the games after closing time. Not scary voices or anything dramatic, just normal conversation, like people were playing and having fun. But when I'd look, all the screens were dark and unplugged. The voices would stop the moment I got close. One night, I decided to hide behind the counter and listen. The voices started up around midnight. I could hear a mom telling her daughter to be careful with the joystick. 2 boys arguing about who got the next turn. An older man explaining how to get extra lives in Galaga. It sounded like a busy Saturday afternoon, except it was Tuesday night and I was alone. I stayed hidden for an hour just listening. The conversations were so normal, so everyday, that I almost forgot how impossible they were. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. A kid's voice said, "Mom, why is that man hiding behind the counter?" Dead silence. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking. Every game screen was dark. The arcade was empty except for me, but I could feel dozens of eyes watching from the shadows between the machines. I grabbed my keys and ran. The next morning, Mr. Rodriguez was waiting for me outside. He looked tired, older than usual. His hair was messier, and his clothes were wrinkled like he'd slept in them. "We need to talk," he said. We sat in his car while he explained things I didn't want to hear. The arcade had been built on the site of an old community center that burned down in 1987. 23 people died in that fire, including 8 children who were playing in the game room when it started. "They're not gone," he said quietly. "They're still here, still playing, still having fun." I wanted to quit right then, pack up my stuff and find a normal job at a normal place where quarters stayed thrown away and games didn't talk after midnight. But Mr. Rodriguez offered to double my pay. Money talks louder than ghosts, I guess. So I stayed. The next few weeks taught me the rules of working in a haunted arcade. Don't touch the green machine, ever. Leave the 3/4 on the Pac-Man machine where they belong. After closing time, play some music so the voices feel welcome, and never, ever look directly at the spaces between the games after dark. I followed the rules and things stayed mostly calm. The voices became background noise, like having a radio on low volume. Kids still played during the day. Parents still brought birthday parties, and teenagers still tried to impress each other with high scores. The green machine stayed quiet in its corner. But rules are made to be broken, and I've never been good at leaving things alone. It started with questions. Who played the green machine? What happened when someone actually finished a game? Why did it have eyes and teeth like some kind of monster instead of looking like a normal arcade cabinet? I asked Mr. Rodriguez, but he just shook his head and told me some questions were better left alone. That's when I decided to do some digging on my own. The internet didn't have much about the community center fire. Just a few newspaper articles from 1987 talking about the tragedy and how the families were coping. But I found something interesting in the comments section of a local news blog. A user named Green Machine 87 had posted a long comment about being at the community center the night of the fire. They talked about playing a new game that had just been delivered that day. A strange green cabinet with eyes and teeth that everyone was afraid to try. I was the only one brave enough to play it, the comment said. The game was different than anything I'd ever seen. Instead of trying to win, you had to lose. Instead of avoiding the monsters, you had to let them catch you. And when they did, something amazing happened. The comment ended there. No explanation of what the amazing thing was. I tried to message Green Machine 87, but the account had been deleted. The comment itself disappeared a few days later, like it had never been there at all. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. What kind of game requires you to lose? What happens when the monsters catch you? And why was that comment deleted so quickly after I found it? The answers came sooner than I expected. It was a Thursday night, about an hour after closing. I was doing my usual routine of cleaning up, counting the register, and getting ready to lock up. The voices had started their nightly conversations, and I was playing some soft rock to keep them happy. That's when I heard something different. A new voice, younger than the others. A boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old. He was talking to someone near the green machine. "Come on, just try it once," he was saying. "I promise it's not scary. It's actually really cool." I couldn't hear the other person's response, but the boy kept talking. "You don't have to be afraid. The game is different than the others. It doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to help you. It wants to show you something special." I crept closer, staying low behind the rows of machines. The voices were coming from right where the green cabinet stood. "Just put in a quarter and trust me," the boy said. "I've been trying to show someone for so long. Please." That's when I realized he was talking to me. I stood up slowly. The arcade looked normal, dark except for the exit signs and the glow from the streetlights outside. But I could feel someone standing right in front of the green machine. "Hello?" I whispered. "Finally," the boy's voice said, and now I could tell exactly where it was coming from. I was starting to think you'd never hear me. My hands were shaking as I walked toward the green cabinet. Each step felt like walking through thick mud. Part of me wanted to run, but a bigger part needed to know what was happening. "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Danny. I died in the fire 36 years ago. I was playing this machine when it happened." I was standing right in front of the green cabinet now. The painted eyes seemed to be looking directly at me. The mouth full of teeth looked almost friendly in the dim light. "What do you want?" I whispered. "I want to finish my game," Danny said. "But I can't do it alone. The machine only works when someone living plays it. Someone who can make the choice." "What choice?" "Whether to stay or go." I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the sadness in Danny's voice. Maybe it was just because I'd been following rules for months, and I was tired of not understanding why. I put a quarter in the slot. The screen flickered to life, showing that same green maze I'd seen before. But this time, instead of going black, it stayed on. A small yellow dot appeared in the center of the maze, and I could control it with the joystick. "Thank you," Danny whispered. The game was simple, but backwards, just like the deleted comment had said. Instead of collecting dots or avoiding monsters, I had to guide my yellow dot toward the green creatures that wandered the maze. Every time one caught me, I'd respawn in a different part of the maze. But something strange happened each time I got caught. I could see more, not just the game screen, but the whole arcade. And it wasn't empty anymore. Kids were everywhere, playing games and laughing and having the time of their lives. I could see them clearly now, not just hear their voices. There was a girl with pigtails playing Frogger, twin boys taking turns on Street Fighter, a teenager showing his little sister how to play Centipede, and dozens of others, all having fun in their own eternal arcade. "Do you see us now?" Danny asked. He was standing right next to me, a boy with messy brown hair and a t-shirt with a dinosaur on it. "Yeah," I said. "I see you. We're not trapped here," he explained as I continued playing the game. "We chose to stay. When the fire started, the green machine gave us all a choice. We could move on to whatever comes next, or we could stay here and keep playing forever." I guided my dot toward another green monster. When it caught me, the vision became even clearer. I could see the joy on every kid's face. They weren't suffering or scared. They were exactly where they wanted to be. "But the choice has to be renewed," Danny continued. "Every few years, someone living has to play the game and confirm that we can stay. The last person who did it was the guy who worked here before you. What happened to him? He saw us, understood what we were, and decided he wanted to join us. He made his choice. That's when I understood what the game really was. It wasn't just about seeing the ghost kids or helping them stay. It was about choosing whether to join them. The game was offering me the same choice they'd all made 36 years ago. I could stay in this arcade forever, playing games and having fun with kids who would never grow up, never worry about bills or jobs or any of the problems that came with being an adult. Or I could finish the game, confirm their right to stay, and go back to my regular life. "You don't have to decide right now," Danny said softly. "Just finish the game first. Let us know we can stay." I kept playing, guiding my dot toward monster after monster. Each time I got caught, I could see the arcade more clearly. I could hear the kids laughing, see them helping each other with difficult games, watch them share pizza and soda like it was the best day of their lives. It looked pretty appealing. No more worrying about rent or car payments. No more dealing with rude customers or cleaning up messes. Just endless games and friends who would never leave or grow apart or forget about me. But something held me back. Maybe it was the memory of my little sister, who was still alive and would wonder what happened to me. Maybe it was the thought of all the experiences I hadn't had yet. Or maybe it was just the knowledge that running away from life, even to something better, wasn't really living. I reached the end of the maze. The screen showed a simple message. Choice confirmed. Thank you for playing. The green machine powered down, and the arcade returned to its normal darkness. But I could still hear the kids playing in the background, their voices happy and grateful. Thank you, Danny whispered. We can stay for another few years now. Will you be okay? I asked. We'll be perfect. This is exactly where we want to be. I locked up the arcade and went home that night with a strange sense of peace. I'd seen something impossible and beautiful. I'd helped kids who died decades ago continue their eternal playtime. And I'd made the choice to keep living my own life. The next morning, the 3/4 were back on the Pac-Man machine. But now I understood they weren't coming back because they were haunted or cursed. They were coming back because Danny and his friends wanted to make sure I always had enough money to play a game if I wanted to. It was their way of saying thank you. Over the next few months, things settled into a new normal. I could hear the kids more clearly now, and sometimes I'd catch glimpses of them out of the corner of my eye. They never bothered the living customers, just enjoyed their eternal games in the spaces between reality. But I started noticing other things too. The high scores on certain machines would change overnight, showing initials that belonged to kids who died in 1987. Sometimes I'd find toys or candy sitting on game cabinets in the morning, like someone had been sharing treats during the night. And the green machine started acting differently. It would hum softly when I walked past it, almost like it was greeting me. The painted eyes seemed to track my movement across the arcade, and occasionally, very faintly, I could hear the sounds of someone playing it, even though the screen stayed dark. That's just Danny practicing, one of the other ghost kids explained one night. Her name was Sarah, and she'd been 8 years old when she died. He's getting really good at it now. Practicing for what? I asked. For when the next living person needs to play. Danny wants to make sure he can help them understand the choice better than anyone helped him. That made me think about the previous employee, the one who decided to stay. I'd never asked Danny what his name was or what he was like. His name was Marcus, Danny told me when I asked. He was older than you, maybe 40-something. He'd been working here for 2 years when it was time for someone to renew our choice. What made him decide to stay? He was lonely. His wife had left him, his kids wouldn't talk to him, and he didn't have any friends. When he saw us all playing together, having fun, never fighting or being mean to each other, he said it looked like paradise. I could understand that. There were plenty of nights when I felt pretty lonely too, coming home to an empty apartment, eating dinner by myself, watching TV shows that nobody else cared about. Do you miss him? I asked. Sometimes, but he's happy now. He's got forever to get good at every game in here, and he doesn't have to worry about grown-up stuff anymore. The thought stuck with me for days. What would it be like to just let go of all the stress and responsibility of adult life? To spend forever playing games with friends who would never judge you or leave you behind? It sounded tempting. But then I'd think about my sister calling to tell me about her new job, or my mom sending me pictures of her garden, or even just the satisfaction of paying my bills on time. There were good things about being alive. even when it was hard. Winter came early that year, and business at the arcade slowed down. Kids stayed home more, parents didn't want to drive in the snow, and teenagers found other places to hang out. Some days I'd go hours without seeing a single customer. That's when I really got to know the ghost kids. There was Danny, of course, who'd become like my guide to understanding how everything worked. Sarah, who loved puzzle games and could solve any level of Tetris without even trying. The twin boys, Kevin and Kyle, who were amazing at fighting games and would spend hours perfecting combo moves. And Maria, the teenager who'd been helping her little brother play Centipede when the fire started. She was 17 when she died, just a year younger than I was when I started working at the arcade. Don't you ever wonder what your life would have been like? I asked her one quiet Tuesday evening. Sometimes, she admitted. I think about college, maybe meeting someone special, having kids of my own. But then I remember how scared I was about all that stuff. What if I picked the wrong school? What if nobody ever loved me? What if I was a terrible mom? She moved a piece on the chess game she was playing against herself. I could see her clearly now during the slow times, when the boundary between the living and dead world seemed thinner. Here, I don't have to worry about any of that, she continued. I just get to play games and help take care of the little kids. It's not the life I planned, but it's a good life. I understood what she meant. Life was full of scary choices and uncertain outcomes. It would be nice to just opt out of all that stress and complexity, but was nice enough. Spring brought more customers and busier days, birthday parties on weekends, field trips from local schools, and teenagers looking for somewhere to hang out after classes ended. The arcade felt alive again with real breathing people. And that's when I noticed something troubling. The ghost kids were getting fainter. Not disappearing exactly, but becoming harder to see and hear. Their voices were quieter, their shapes less solid. Even Danny seemed to be fading around the edges. What's happening to you guys? I asked one night after closing. It's been almost 4 years since the last renewal, Danny explained, and his voice sounded distant. The longer we go without someone confirming our choice, the weaker we get. If nobody plays the green machine soon, we'll have to move on whether we want to or not. How soon? Maybe a few more months, maybe less. That night, I barely slept. These kids had become my friends over the past year. The idea of them just fading away, forced to leave the place they loved, made me feel sick. But I also knew what playing the green machine meant. It meant making the same choice they'd all made 36 years ago. Stay and play forever, or confirm their right to remain and continue with my own life. Except this time I wasn't sure which choice I wanted to make. My life outside the arcade had gotten smaller over the past year. I spent most of my free time at work, talking to kids who'd been dead for decades. I'd stopped dating, stopped hanging out with friends, stopped doing much of anything except working and sleeping. Maybe I was already halfway to choosing to stay. The thought scared me, but it also felt oddly comforting. No more worrying about the future or regretting the past. Just eternal games and friends who would never change or leave. But was that really living? Or was it just a different kind of death? I started paying more attention to the living customers, trying to remember what it felt like to be fully alive. I watched kids get excited about beating a high score, teenagers flirting awkwardly while pretending to focus on their games, parents smiling as their children laughed and played. There was something beautiful about all that messy, complicated, temporary life. But there was also something beautiful about the simple, pure joy of the ghost kids. They never had bad days or broken dreams. They just played and laughed and enjoyed each moment without worrying about what came next. Both choices had their appeal. Summer arrived with longer days and bigger crowds. The arcade was packed most evenings, filled with the sounds of games and laughter and kids having the time of their lives. It reminded me of what the ghost kids had told me about the night they died, how the community center had been full of families having fun right up until the fire started. The irony wasn't lost on me. The happiest, most alive place I knew was full of dead children. By July, the ghost kids were barely visible even to me. I could still hear them if I listened carefully, but their voices were like whispers carried on the wind. Danny looked like he was made of smoke, and some of the younger kids had faded so much I could only sense them as warm spots in the air. "It's time," Danny told me one night as I was closing up. His voice was so faint I had to strain to hear it. "We can't wait much longer." "I know," I said. "Have you decided what you want to do?" That was the question I'd been avoiding for months. Had I decided? Did I want to spend forever in this arcade playing games with ghost children? Or did I want to renew their choice and continue living my own life, whatever that might bring? "I think so," I said. "But I'm scared." "That's okay. Being scared means you're thinking about it seriously." Marcus wasn't scared at all. He was just tired and lonely and wanted to escape. "You're different." "How?" "You still care about things outside this place. You still have people who would miss you. You're not running away from life. You're just trying to figure out how to live it." Danny was right, as usual. I did still care about things outside the arcade. My sister was getting married next month, and she'd asked me to walk her down the aisle since our dad had died when we were young. My mom was starting to show signs of getting older, and she might need help in the coming years. And there were experiences I hadn't had yet, places I wanted to travel, things I wanted to learn, maybe even someone I wanted to love. But there were also experiences I might never have. What if I never found love? What if I never traveled anywhere interesting? What if I spent the rest of my life working jobs I didn't care about, living in apartments that didn't feel like home, watching everyone else live the lives I wished I had? At least in the arcade, I'd be guaranteed happiness. "It's not really happiness, though," Sarah said when I voiced this thought. She was so faint now that I could see right through her to the Frogger machine behind her. "It's contentment. We don't grow or change or learn new things about ourselves. We just stay exactly the same forever." Is that bad? Not bad, but not really living either. We chose this because we were scared of what living might bring. You don't have to make the same choice we did. That night, I went home and called my sister. We talked for 2 hours about her wedding plans, her new house, her hopes for the future. She was nervous about marriage, excited about starting a family, worried about money, and optimistic about everything working out somehow. She was fully alive in a way I'd forgotten how to be. "You sound different lately," she said near the end of our conversation. "Distant. Are you okay?" "I'm figuring some things out," I told her. "Well, figure them out fast. I need my big brother to be present for my wedding, not lost in his own head." After we hung up, I sat in my apartment looking at the pictures on my walls. Photos of family gatherings, vacations, friends I hadn't talked to in months. Evidence of a life I'd been living but not really participating in. When had I stopped being present in my own life? Maybe it started before I even got the job at the arcade. Maybe I'd been drifting for years. going through the motions but not really engaging with anything. And maybe the ghost kids weren't offering me an escape from life. They were offering me an escape from the responsibility of actually living. The next morning I found Danny waiting for me when I opened the arcade. He was so faint I could barely make out his shape, but his voice was still clear. "Tonight?" he asked. "Tonight?" I agreed. The day passed slowly. Every customer who came in felt precious somehow, like I was seeing living people for the last time. Kids arguing over whose turn it was, parents taking pictures of their children playing, teenagers trying to impress each other with their gaming skills. All of it messy and complicated and wonderful. As closing time approached, I found myself really looking at the green machine for the first time in months. The painted eyes seemed sadder now, like they knew what was coming. The sharp-toothed mouth looked less like a smile and more like a grimace. Was it eager for me to play, or was it tired of offering the same choice over and over again? "We're ready," Danny said as I locked the front door and turned off most of the lights. The other ghost kids had gathered around the green machine, though I could barely see them now. They looked like shadows of shadows, impressions left in the air by memories of children who died long ago. "Before I play," I said, "I want you all to know something. You've been the best friends I've had in years. You taught me things about joy and friendship that I'd forgotten. Whatever happens next, I'm grateful for that." "We're grateful too," Maria said, her voice like wind through leaves. "You listened to us when nobody else could. You cared about us when the world had forgotten we ever existed." I walked up to the green machine and put my hand on the coin slot. The metal was warm, like it had been sitting in sunlight all day. "Danny," I said, "what happens if I choose to stay? What happens to Jake, the living person?" "He stops existing," Danny said honestly. "Your body disappears, your life ends, and you become like us. Forever young, forever playing, forever content, but never growing or changing again. And if I choose to go? You confirm our right to stay for another few years, and you continue living your life, whatever that brings." I took a deep breath and put a quarter in the slot. The screen came to life with that familiar green maze. My yellow dot appeared in the center, and the green monsters began their slow patrol around the pathways. But this time, something was different. I could see potential futures in the maze walls. In one direction, I saw myself staying at the arcade forever, young and happy and surrounded by friends who would never leave. We played games and told jokes and never worried about anything serious ever again. In another direction, I saw myself at my sister's wedding, walking her down the aisle with tears in my eyes. I saw myself traveling to places I'd only dreamed about, meeting people who would challenge and change me, making mistakes and learning from them. I saw myself getting older, dealing with loss and disappointment and heartbreak. But I also saw myself experiencing wonder and love, and the satisfaction of a life fully lived. Both futures had their appeal, but only one of them was really mine to choose. I guided my yellow dot through the maze, letting the green monsters catch me over and over again. Each time they did, I could see the ghost kids more clearly. They were beautiful in their eternal contentment, but they were also frozen in time like insects in amber. They'd made their choice 36 years ago, and it had been the right choice for them at that moment. But it didn't have to be the right choice for me. I reached the end of the maze and saw the familiar message, "Choice confirmed. Thank you for playing." But this time, there was something else. A second message appeared. "Will you stay or go?" I looked at Danny and his friends. gathered around the machine like they were holding their breath. They weren't pressuring me either way. They just wanted me to choose authentically, whatever that meant. I thought about my sister's wedding, my mom getting older, the places I hadn't seen and the experiences I hadn't had. I thought about the possibility of love and loss, success and failure, all the messy complications of a life fully lived. Then I made my choice. I'm going to go, I said quietly. I'm going to keep living. The relief in Danny's voice was unmistakable. Good. That's what we hoped you'd choose. Really? Really? We love it here. But we don't want anyone to stay just because they're afraid of life. We want them to stay because they genuinely want to be here forever. I pressed the button to confirm my choice. The green machine screen flashed once, then displayed a final message. Choice recorded. See you next time. The arcade returned to its normal nighttime quiet, but I could still sense the ghost kids around me. They seemed more solid now, renewed by my choice to confirm their right to stay. Thank you, Danny said, and his voice was clear and strong again. We'll be here for another few years now, maybe longer. What happens when the next person has to make the choice? Maybe they'll choose to stay. Maybe they'll choose to go like you did. Either way, we'll be okay with it. The choice is always theirs to make. I locked up the arcade and walked to my car, feeling lighter than I had in months. The night air was warm and full of possibilities. My sister's wedding was in 3 weeks, and I had a lot of living to catch up on before then. As I drove home, I thought about the ghost kids settling in for another night of eternal games. They were happy where they were, and I was happy with my choice to leave them there. Sometimes, the greatest act of friendship is letting someone stay exactly where they want to be, even if you can't stay there with them. The next morning, I found the 3 quarters on the Pac-Man machine as always. But this time, there was something else too. A small piece of paper folded next to them. I opened it and found a message written in crayon. Thanks for letting us stay. Have a great life. Your friends, Danny, Sarah, Maria, Kevin, Kyle, and everyone else. I kept that note in my wallet for years after I eventually left the arcade job. It reminded me that there were friends everywhere, even in the most impossible places, and that sometimes the best way to honor friendship is to live your own life as fully as possible. But my story with the arcade wasn't over yet. 6 months after that night with the green machine, something unexpected happened. Mr. Rodriguez called me on a Tuesday morning, his voice shaking with excitement. You need to get down here right away, he said. Something incredible is happening. I drove to the arcade faster than I probably should have. When I got there, Mr. Rodriguez was standing outside with a huge grin on his face. Look, he said, pointing at the building. The entire outside wall of the arcade was covered in drawings. Not graffiti or vandalism, but beautiful, colorful pictures that seemed to have appeared overnight. There were images of kids playing games, families laughing together, and in the center of it all, a bright green machine with friendly eyes and a smiling mouth. The kids did this, Mr. Rodriguez said. The ghost kids. They wanted to thank you for what you did. I walked closer to examine the drawings. They were incredibly detailed, showing scenes from inside the arcade that only someone who'd spent a lot of time there would know. I could see Danny playing the green machine, Sarah solving a puzzle game, the twins perfecting their fighting moves. And there in one corner was a drawing of me walking out the front door with a smile on my face. How is this possible? I asked. I don't know, Mr. Rodriguez admitted. But people are already coming to see it. The local news wants to do a story. I think this place is about to become famous." He was right. Within a week, Neon Dreams Arcade had become a tourist attraction. People drove from hundreds of miles away to see the mysterious drawings and play games in a supposedly haunted arcade. Business boomed like never before. But the best part was watching how happy the ghost kids were with all the attention. They couldn't interact with the new visitors directly, but I could sense their joy at having so many people appreciate their home. During slow moments, I'd catch glimpses of Danny and the others watching the crowds with pride. They'd created something beautiful, and people were responding to it with wonder instead of fear. "This is better than we ever hoped," Danny told me one evening after the last tourist had left. "We're not just hiding in the shadows anymore. We're part of something that brings people joy." "You always were," I said. "I just helped more people see it." The success of the arcade allowed Mr. Rodriguez to hire more employees, which meant I could finally cut back to part-time hours. I used the extra time to reconnect with friends I'd neglected, take a cooking class, and even go on a few dates. Life was getting fuller and more interesting every day, but I still spent weekend evenings at the arcade, helping close up and chatting with the ghost kids. They'd become family to me, and I loved hearing about their experiences with all the new visitors. "A little girl tried to high-five me today," Sarah told me excitedly. She couldn't see me, but she felt something when her hand went through mine. She laughed and said it felt like touching a warm breeze. "An old man was playing Galaga," Kevin added, "and he was struggling with the patterns. So I helped guide his hands a little bit. He ended up getting his highest score ever, and said it felt like his grandson was there helping him." These stories filled me with warmth. The ghost kids had found a way to keep bringing joy to people, even in their invisible state. One year after the drawings appeared, I was approached by a documentary filmmaker who wanted to tell the story of Neon Dreams Arcade. She'd heard rumors about the supernatural events and was fascinated by the idea of a haunted place that brought happiness instead of fear. "Would you be willing to be interviewed?" she asked. I thought about it for a long time. Telling the real story would mean revealing things that most people would never believe. But it might also help spread the message that not all ghosts were scary, and that some places held magic worth preserving. I agreed to participate, with one condition. Any money made from the documentary would go toward maintaining the arcade and keeping it open for future generations. The filming process took several months. The documentary crew was respectful and genuinely interested in capturing the positive spirit of the place. They interviewed customers, employees, and local historians about the community center fire. But the most moving part was when they filmed me talking directly to Danny and the other kids. To the camera crew, it looked like I was talking to empty air, but anyone who watched carefully could see the genuine warmth and friendship in my voice. "This place taught me that life is about connections," I said during one interview. "Whether those connections are with the living or the dead, they matter. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply acknowledge that someone exists and deserves to be heard." The documentary, titled The Arcade of Lost Souls, premiered at a small film festival 2 years later. It won awards for both storytelling and its unique perspective on life after death. More importantly, it brought even more visitors to Neon Dreams Arcade. Families came to play games and feel the positive energy of the place. Researchers came to study the mysterious drawings. And occasionally, people dealing with their own losses came seeking comfort and hope. The ghost kids loved it all. "We're famous now," Maria told me with a laugh. "Who would have thought dying in a fire would eventually make us celebrities?" But fame wasn't what made them happiest. It was the knowledge that their story was helping people understand that death didn't have to be the end of bringing joy to others. One evening, about 3 years after I'd played the Green Machine, something unprecedented happened. A new ghost appeared in the arcade. Her name was Lisa, and she'd been an elderly woman who died peacefully in the hospital across the street. Instead of moving on to whatever came next, she'd chosen to come to the arcade because she'd heard it was a place where spirits could find happiness. "I always loved games," she explained to Danny and me, "and I was so tired of being alone. When I felt myself dying, I just wished I could go somewhere with friends and laughter." The existing ghost kids welcomed Lisa with open arms. They taught her how to interact with the games and showed her all the best spots to watch the living visitors play. "This is why we stay," Danny told me later. "Not just for ourselves, but to be here for others who need a place to belong." I realized then that the arcade had become something even more special than I'd originally understood. It wasn't just a place where the victims of one tragedy had found peace. It was a refuge for any spirit who chose connection over solitude, joy over despair. The Green Machine, I learned, wasn't unique to our arcade. Danny explained that there were others scattered around the world, appearing in places where the boundary between life and death grew thin. They offered the same choice to both living and dead: stay and find eternal contentment, or move on and embrace whatever comes next. "But ours is special," Danny said with pride. "Because of what you did, because of how you helped us create this community, our machine calls out to spirits who are looking for family. We're not just an arcade anymore. We're a home." As word spread through whatever networks exist among the dead, more spirits began arriving at Neon Dreams. Not all of them stayed. Some just visited briefly before moving on to other destinations. But many decided to make the arcade their permanent home. Each new arrival brought their own personality and interest to the community. There was Robert, a former mechanic who became fascinated with keeping the games in perfect working order. Janet, a retired teacher who loved helping young visitors learn how to play classic games, and Marcus, who I finally got to meet, the previous employee who'd chosen to stay. "I don't regret my choice," Marcus told me during one of our conversations. "But I'm glad you made the choice you did. This place needs someone alive to bridge the gap between our world and theirs." The arcade continued to thrive and grow. Mr. Rodriguez expanded the space, adding more games and a small cafe where visitors could sit and soak in the unique atmosphere. The mysterious drawings on the outside wall became more elaborate over time, telling an ongoing story of the spirits within. And I kept working there part-time, serving as the unofficial ambassador between the living and the dead. It wasn't a role I'd ever expected to have, but it felt right. I helped new spirits adjust to their existence, explained the arcade's history to curious visitors, and made sure the ghost kids felt heard and appreciated. My life outside the arcade flourished too. I started dating someone seriously, a woman named Claire who worked at the library and found my stories about the arcade fascinating rather than frightening. She even started volunteering there on weekends, helping organize events and making visitors feel welcome. "You know what I love about this place?" she told me one evening as we watched a family play games together while invisible spirits cheered them on. "It proves that love and joy are stronger than death. That's pretty amazing." 5 years after my first encounter with Danny and the Green Machine, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I asked Mr. Rodriguez if I could buy the arcade from him. He was ready to retire, and I'd saved enough money from my other job and the documentary royalties to make it work. More importantly, I wanted to ensure that Neon Dreams would always be a safe haven for both living and dead visitors. The ghost kids were thrilled when I told them. "Does this mean you're staying forever?" Sarah asked excitedly. "Not the way you're staying," I explained. "I'm still alive, still growing and changing. But yes, I'm committed to keeping this place running for as long as I can." "And then what happens?" Danny wondered. "Then I'll find someone else who understands how special this place is. Someone who will take care of you all and help new spirits find their way home." Becoming the owner of a haunted arcade came with unique challenges. I had to learn how to balance the needs of living customers with the wishes of spirit residents. Some games worked better when ghosts were helping operate them, while others needed to be ghost-free zones for visitors who might be frightened by unexplained phenomena. I also had to become an expert in the supernatural aspects of running such a place. I learned which times of day the boundaries between worlds were thinnest, how to recognize when new spirits were trying to communicate, and what signs indicated that a ghost might be ready to move on to whatever came next. But the rewards far outweighed the challenges. Watching a grieving parent find comfort in the gentle presence of child spirits, seeing elderly visitors light up as ghost companions helped them achieve new high scores. Observing shy kids gain confidence when invisible friends cheered their gaming attempts. The arcade had become a place where the impossible happened every day, and it was all for the sake of bringing people joy. 7 years after that first night when I heard Danny's voice, Neon Dreams Arcade was featured in national magazines and television shows. We'd become known as the most positive haunted location in the world, a place where people came not to be scared but to be inspired. The ghost community in the arcade had grown to include dozens of spirits from different eras and backgrounds. They'd formed their own society within our walls, complete with social groups, favorite activities, and ongoing friendships that spanned generations. But through it all, Danny remained my closest spirit friend. He'd become the unofficial leader of the ghost community, helping new arrivals adjust and mediating any rare conflicts that arose. "Do you ever regret not taking the chance to join us?" he asked me one quiet Tuesday evening. "Never," I said honestly. "I love being able to see both worlds. I love growing older and experiencing new things. And I love knowing that when my time finally comes, I'll get to make that choice with full understanding of what each option means." "And what do you think you'll choose?" I smiled. "I think I'll be ready to move on when that day comes. I'll have lived a full life, and I'll be curious about what comes next. But I'll always be grateful for the time I spent here with all of you." Danny nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of answer that makes us sure we helped the right person all those years ago. As I write this story now, 10 years have passed since I first found those 3 quarters on the Pac-Man machine. Neon Dreams Arcade continues to thrive as a bridge between worlds, a place where the living and the dead coexist in harmony. Claire and I got married 3 years ago, with the ceremony held right here in the arcade. The ghost kids decorated the space with invisible flowers that created the most beautiful fragrances, and several visitors reported feeling an unusual sense of joy and blessing during the service. We're expecting our first child next month, and the ghost kids are already excited about having a baby to watch grow up. Danny has promised to be the child's invisible guardian, making sure they're always safe while playing in the arcade. "It'll be like having a godfather who can walk through walls," Claire jokes. The green machine still sits in its corner, eyes watching patiently for the next person who needs to make a choice. I keep it well maintained and make sure there are always quarters available for anyone who feels called to play. Sometimes I wonder what will happen when it's time for another renewal choice. Will the next person choose to stay or go? Will they understand the beauty of what the ghost kids have created here? I've started training my assistant manager, a young woman named Rebecca, who seems to have a natural ability to sense the spirit residents. She might be the one who eventually takes over when I'm ready to step back, but that's still years away. For now, I'm content to serve as the guardian of this impossible place, the keeper of stories that most people would never believe. Every morning when I unlock the doors and find those 3/4 waiting on the Pac-Man machine, I'm reminded of how much my life changed the day I decided to listen instead of running away. I'm grateful for the choice I made to keep living while helping others find their own version of happiness. The arcade is busy tonight, filled with the sounds of games and laughter and the invisible chatter of spirits who chose to stay in a place where joy never ends. In a few hours, I'll lock up and drive home to my wife, carrying with me the satisfaction of another day spent bridging two worlds. Tomorrow, those quarters will be back where they belong, and the green machine will keep its eternal vigil, waiting for the next person who needs to decide between staying and going. And somewhere in the spaces between the games, Danny and his friends will keep playing, keep laughing, and keep proving that death is just another kind of beginning. The strange things that happen every day at Neon Dreams Arcade aren't strange anymore. They're just magic, and magic is the most ordinary thing in the world once you learn to see it.